And your kidney? It could help Grandma pump iron. You're not just donating your organs, you're giving life. Organ donation. Join the movement and commit today at blood.ca. Canadian Blood Services. It's in you to give.
My name is Caitlin. I'm 6 years old. I like to go to the beach with my cousins. When I was a baby, I was very sick. And then I got a liver transplant from an organ donor. He saved my life.
This gift of life was made possible by an organ donor. Imagine what you could make possible. Sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov.
Thank you for tuning in to Rebuilding the Black Family with Pastor Carl Lewis and myself, Clement Humphrey. Rebuilding the Black Family is dedicated to discussing principles essential to building strong, productive, and successful families. Please join the conversation by liking, following, and sharing us from our Facebook page. And that's facebook.com/Foundation for Life Church and facebook.com/SPR Live FM. Now, let's join Pastor Carl and me, Clement Humphrey. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Claremont, and this is none other than
Pastor Carl. How are you guys? Good to be here again.
It is wonderful to be here in the nice cool of the day.
Nice cool of the day, huh?
Yeah, I'm thinking, is this going to be
something's going to break here? Something's going to give here.
I saw some of my friends in the States texting pictures and saying, is this for real? Yes, my friends, it's real. Good old Winter saying, I don't want to leave. And, it's like when somebody says, when somebody's telling you off and they go through the door and they come back and say, and another thing. That's what Winter's doing to us. And another thing.
You ain't going to make me leave, huh? You're not going to make me leave no matter what, huh?
No matter what, we're not leaving. And some people are on their way back from the warm weather where they had sun for a week or weeks, and they're coming right back to the blast of cold, because I think today we're going to have some rain. We will be having rain tonight. They said about 10 to 15 centimeters of it. And on Thursday, we might have some bit of flurries coming down again. I mean, the south side, and I've received some of it. It's welcoming.
It's welcoming, huh?
A buddy from Battleford, Saskatchewan, was talking about, telling me that he said, it's not that bad. We're looking forward to the weather. It's minus 18, feels like minus 22. And he says it's not that bad. I'm like, what do you mean it's not that bad? Well, we generally get minus 34. I'm like, okay, gotcha. I gotcha.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Well, you had a good weekend, good Easter
I
weekend.
did. Interesting enough, our conversation today and our topic today is relative to what I did on the weekend. I spent it with my children.
Right.
From the eldest to the youngest.
Great.
Had a great time chit-chatting with them, and because the eldest was away for about 6 weeks or so.
On a tour.
On a tour, yeah. So he's back. So his wife couldn't make it, but I'll find her. I know where they live. I said to them, my children base is widening. I always want to have a lot of children, so it's widening, right? And where my children, the other two that are living right now, there's a young lady that lives with them too. So I said, I got another daughter in the mix. So I'm widening my my, what do you call it?
know, your reach, your outreach.
My outreach, my children base. I guess my camp, so to speak.
Your fathering.
My father, yes. I widened it a little bit there. No, to get these extra children. But today's topic is really interesting. Mm-hmm. Every child deserves a loving father.
Every child deserves a loving father. Now, to begin, I just want to... last week we spoke we discussed the importance of a father in a child's life. And I wanted to just allude, first of all, or at least look at a article that spoke on the significance of a father's influence. Mm-hmm. And so some of these points were written by a Dr. David Popenoe, a professor of sociology at Rutgers University and co-director of the National Marriage Project. And there's a few points that he was making reference to, that fathers are not just another second adult in a home. Because oftentimes in the society, if we're not careful and culturally, people are minimizing the importance of fathers. You see it oftentimes in media and different things, and maybe sitcoms and different things like that. But there's a few things that he mentioned that I believe are noteworthy. One of the things he says, fathers are important because of parenting styles. Mm-hmm. So a woman parents one way, and a man, generally speaking, a father, parents another way. And the thing is this, a child needs both, needs the input of both, not one or the other. And it's not that one is more important than the other, but you need the input of both in the formation of a healthy child. So I thought that was a good point there. For example, he said this, that fathers, you notice, we're more rougher with our children. Mm-hmm. You know,
some cases.
In a lot of cases, we're more rougher.
When you say rough, what do you mean?
Like, we play rougher. Men play,
you think so?
Of course they do. Men play rougher with their kids. You're kidding with me right now, right?
No, I'm not even kidding.
Yes, they do. Whether it's a girl or a boy, you know, the father plays rougher.
Well, with the boy, you play a little rougher because he wants the boy to be
even with the girls, you play you kind of play
really?
rougher. Oh, yes.
Is that what you did?
Yeah. Anyway, let's just forget about you right now, okay? But generally speaking, fathers tend to do that. And so, this note, it says, they also introduce them to a wider variety of methods of dealing with life. They tend to stress rules, justice, fairness, and duty in discipline. Another thing he said about this is also... in the analysis of over 100 studies on parent-child relationships, it was found that having a loving and nurturing father was as important for a child's happiness, well-being, and social and academic success as having a loving and nurturing mother. See that? I think that was quite interesting. Another one. According to child psychologist Kyle Pruitt, a father's more active play style and comparatively slower response to a toddler or infant experiencing frustration serve to promote problem-solving competencies and independence in the child. So again, problem-solving. Another one. In the words of Dr. Pruitt, positive father care is associated with more social and positive moral behavior in boys and girl. There's another one, the fifth one, education and trouble with the law and depression. This is borne out by research from the University of Pennsylvania, which indicates that children who feel a closeness and warmth with their father are twice as likely to enter college. See that? 75% less likely to have a child in their teen years, and 80% less likely to be incarcerated, and half as likely to show various signs of depression. Then here's another one. Empathy and compassion. In a 26-year-long study, researchers found that the number one factor in developing empathy in children was father involvement. Fathers spending regular time alone with their children translated into children who became compassionate adults. Then lastly, so again, fathers are critical to a child's development.
Absolutely.
In this article, they said we've only scratched the surface as far as showing the evidence of the importance of a father in a child's life, and the evidence is overwhelming. Wow. And so I think that's really, really, really important to our discussion and what we're emphasizing here today. And so in our topic today, every child does deserve a loving father. And I'm emphasizing those words. And notice we didn't just say a father.
A loving father.
We said a loving father. And so I'm sure you'll interrupt, but I'm gonna start off by saying this, because we're going somewhere today, and I really believe this program is going to be really helpful. So really tell your friends, co-workers, neighbors to really tune in to this program. It will really help you. It'll help those who may be, whether they're parenting as a dual parent family, or those of you particularly who might have experienced a separation in relationship and you're parenting on your own. It'll show you some critical things we're going to talk about today, and I believe next week, that's going to help you to better manage that situation. And so every child deserves a loving father. Okay, so now hear this on this. We believe that every child, every father who's a father to a child should have some access to their child. Now, I'm going to qualify that, though, if you listen to everything we say today.
Before you make another statement, I want to say hello to Peggy.
Hello, Peggy.
And to Sonia, because Peggy's Sonia. a regular listener, so I just want to acknowledge her today. That thank you so much for locking into us today and encouraging her friends to lock in with us.
Did she get her cup?
Yeah, she did. She did.
And a T-shirt?
She got the cup. I don't think she got. No, she didn't get a T-shirt. Peggy, don't even start.
I was going to say.
Don't let me crank you up.
Peggy telling Mike that I didn't get my T-shirt. Okay.
We got the cup.
But thank you for tuning in. And last week was really well. We got some good responses, and we love your feedback. And so I'll get to tune in later today or tomorrow, and we'll respond to those feedbacks. So please forgive us for not tuning or not responding quickly. But we really appreciate you tuning in. Now, so every child deserves a loving father, and you're going to see why when I'm talking about qualifying that, you'll see some things we're going to talk about. And so it's interesting, I was thinking about this over the weekend, that children they come into the world through various relationships and circumstances.
Correct.
And so we all know that. And so, but it's good to look at it. So they come in through marriage. Mm-hmm. They can come in through let's say a promiscuous relationship, let's say a one-night stand.
Right.
Through an oppressive or violent relationship.
Correct.
Some children are planned for by a couple who are committed to one another. Some children are the result of a sexual relationship where the parties have no commitment to one another. Some children are the result of a woman just wanting to have a child with no expectation of a long-lasting relationship with the father of the child. So I think it's important to start there.
Right.
Your children come into, that's just the reality of life and the reality of what we're dealing with in this planet. And then secondly, children are raised in various family settings. Mm-hmm. So the settings, the structures and relationships that children find themselves in, they vary too.
Right.
And so I want to list a few of them that I came up with. So there's two-parent homes in which the child's parents are married.
Right.
Which is the most ideal. Then let's say a single-parent home with just one parent. Mm-hmm. Then there's a home which has one parent after, let's say, the death of a spouse or a separation or a divorce. Yeah. There's a home which has a biological parent as well as a step-parent. Mm-hmm. There's a two-parent home in which the parents are in a common law relationship. There's a home in which the guardians are related to the child's parents. For example, grandparents are raising, aunts, uncles are raising that child. There's a home in which the child's guardian may not be related to the child, and again, this could have been the result of the death of both parents.
Right.
So again, I think it's important to really to acknowledge those things. Mm-hmm. Let's say a child could have been adopted.
Right.
by a couple or a single parent home, and a child that's parented by foster parents for temporary periods.
Right.
So you've got all these different settings, if you will, and relationships into which a child finds themselves. Now let me say this. Here's a biggie. Just because a man supplied a sperm or a seed to produce a child, that action by itself does not make them a father.
No, he's just a sperm donor.
That's good. See, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. So just remember that. I think that's something that that's really important. Again, just because a man supplied you just said it real well. You captured it even smaller. I like that. A man supplied the seed, the sperm that produced a child. That action by itself does not make them a father. Like in Claremont's terms, is just a sperm donor. Okay, now. So what makes a father? We said, every child deserves a loving father. I was thinking of that over the last several days. Now think about it, that every child deserves a loving father.
So now, when you say every child deserves a loving father, can we...
Now, I know where you're going to go, by the way. I just know it. You're going to mention mother. We're going to talk
No.
Okay.
I was going to say, can we... is the right word qualify, or can we explain what do you mean by loving father?
I am. That's exactly. I'm going to do that right now. We're going to do that right there.
Because I know some loving fathers, and I know some loving fathers.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
You know what? We should put a loving father poster, and we'll put you in there. You'll be the poster.
No. I won't be in one of those posters.
Oh man. Okay.
Go ahead.
So the thing is this. So we said now every child deserves a loving father. But just before I say that, just think about it, Claremont. That can you imagine a child is put into this world? And we talked about the necessity of a father last week. And I just love the feedback we got. So look at what a father produces and helps. Imagine a child without that.
Right.
That came into the world. They didn't ask to come into this world. Right? They had no choice as to who their parents were, or the conditions, or how they got into this world.
Right.
And we're saying, since their nurturing, their education, their development, their protection is so crucial and is so dependent on their parents or some responsible adult, then we're saying this: isn't it a shame when a child doesn't have a loving father? And I'm saying, one of my premises, every child deserves a loving father. So what is a loving father? Let's look at a few points as I thought about this. So, or we should say, how is this love demonstrated? So how is this love demonstrated? So it's demonstrated, one of the first things I thought about is this. This kind of man who we can qualify as a father, he doesn't just put his seed anywhere just because he can. Now you asked me, well, let's qualify this love. Right. Let's break down, let's unpackage this love. So that means this man that we call a loving father, that every child needs, again, he doesn't just put his seed anywhere. He's not just a sperm donor putting out seed just because he can. He's not just having sex with any and every woman just because he can. That's not love.
Right.
That's not a loving father. So we can say this: a child doesn't deserve that kind of a father, because that's not love.
Right.
Then my next one is this: he is committed to his child. So love as an action. It's not just words. It's not just a feeling. It's not just simply some kind of abstract emotion, but it's very specific. It's very tangible. So love means commitment. So a loving father is a committed man. He is committed to, we could say, the seed that he's put out there. Right. He's committed to his child. Next one I said, he wants to be in the life of his child. That's a loving father. He wants to be in the life of his child. Next one, he invests in the life of his children. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So these are all these qualities of a loving father. He invests in the life of his children. He takes responsibility for the safety, the provision, and the upbringing of his child and or children. He is one who instructs, teaches, and trains his children. So all of these are love actions, if you will. You can.
I'm waiting for you to finish it. I'm waiting for you to finish.
He spends regular quantity time with his children. Now, even if you mentioned a great example. Remember last week? The gentleman who was away for 4 months at a time, or something like that. And so when I said regular, the quantity time, he might be someone who, like your friend, is away 4 months at a time. But he showed how important his children were. He's an example. That's a loving father. Why? He's away for 4 months at a time. But when he's home, he's home. His children understand he has to be away. He's communicated that understanding. But even if they don't understand, if they were young children, when he's there, his investment of his life in them communicates love. And we're saying that's a father. That's a real man. He uses every means and opportunity to develop his relationship with his child. That's what that man did, even if he's away. Different times, right? He does whatever it takes to build his relationship with his child or children. He does whatever is necessary to help the mother of his child in supplying whatever their child needs, according to his abilities. He is personally invested in his child's education and personal development. Another one, he does whatever is necessary to create the kind of peaceful environment conducive to the positive progression of his children. And that might include, or will include, living in peace with his child's mother, doing whatever he can to do that. He truly loves and cares for his children. He wants to, listen to this, and he takes responsibility for the children he has helped to bring into this world. That is love.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I know you got.
I'm just looking at the comments. Somebody saying "Amen" right there. But now we're talking about the love of a father, and I'm going to say this just as a sidebar, and there's a real sidebar too. I was talking to, this is years ago, and this gentleman says, well, he's a gentleman now. At the time, he was a young man. We were all having conversation. At the time, I had 2 children. And he says, I don't want to have children. I'm like, really? Why? I said, no, you have, your little bundle of joy. He said, having children, his commentary, having children is just an excuse for men to play with dolls that they couldn't play with dolls for, that when they have children, they could play with the children like playing with dolls. I'm like,
wow. That's what he said, eh?
Yeah, and I thought, are you for real?
Yeah, he said that, eh?
So it so happens, and I call it irresponsibility, of him, whichever girl he was with at the time, ended up getting pregnant for him. And he walked away. Because he said, I told her I don't want to have any children. I said, well, you should have taken the necessary precautions yourself. Exactly. You should have been responsible. It's not only her responsibility. Well, I told her. She should have known. Right? And so I look at that. Not only can he not even be a loving father, he can't be loving anybody. Because he's just such a selfish individual. Yeah. Right? That was a turn into myself. I'm about me. I haven't seen him for years. I don't know what he looks like now, if he's still around, what he's doing, that kind of stuff. But I looked at that and I thought, even though the child was born, you think it may have changed his feelings that, yeah, that's my child. Nope. I don't want to have nothing to do with it.
So you had, I've never heard that thought, the rationale he had. So somewhere, wherever that came from, that really messed up his whole thinking and his whole premise for children.
Now, saying that, there are certain situations I've seen at home, and then I often thought, could that have been one of the reason why he thinks like that? Now, growing up as boys, boys playing with dolls is like absolute taboo. No, right? But if you're playing Dolly House, I don't know if you ever played Dolly House before.
Yeah.
Right, you play Dolly House. Mom, young girls, she's the mother with the doll, and and then she says, hold on to the baby for a little bit. So now here it is, you rocking this doll, right? So I've seen fathers who have really came down on their boys, like, stop playing Dolly House. You know that's a grown man stuff, and you're playing with a doll. Are you a sissy? This kind of stuff. Now his attitude and behavior was, I love my son enough to make sure that I teach him the right way. That's his definition of showing love. And he will be that way. He's like like a sergeant in the army, training thing. And that's his way of saying, this is my way of saying this is love. Right? That's why I ask you to qualify what love is from a father, because some fathers may think, I put the food on the table, I make sure they get all the education, I make sure all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to affection, it is zero. And they tell you, nobody can love their children like they do, and they will defend them to death. But that sense of emotions going out, whether to the daughter or the son, is not there.
Gotcha.
So it just, and I thought about that today, because I don't know how that came back to me when I saw the list that you sent me yesterday. That here's this guy that says, men having children is just an excuse because they couldn't play with dolls, so now they're playing with children now, right? And they call it, it's just a transfer of things. So I thought, could that have been the reason, one of the many reasons? Now, I don't know him from little boy, and I'm thinking, if you have a father like that, it will mess up your thinking.
Gotcha.
Right? Even though the father is showing you love and trying to make sure you have a proper education, you go to school, and he wants to make sure you're doing well, and it's his way of demonstrating love because that's what he learned from his father. Could it have a little bit of a twist now?
Gotcha.
As time goes on.
But I still think in what he said, he's mixed up two different issues.
Of course.
And, what you said about that. Suppose you felt, suppose what he said was true. It's not, but suppose that if you're playing with children, you whatever.
You're making an exchange with dolls to children. But what I'm looking at, he mixes the two, but we often do that as human beings. Somebody would tell you something that they're not talking about one area. This is why we try to do this a lot in this program, to make sure we qualify and be sure that people understand what we're saying. And so he probably would have taken the two and smushed them together, and he come up with his own stuff. And here it is now, there's a child that is out there that is his, and he doesn't want to even see the child because he says he's not trading in a doll for a child. Pretty much that's what you're doing as a man, so I don't need to. And then I have another an ex-co-worker who plainly said to me that, for example, I was to say this last week and I didn't. Every one of my children that were born, I have 4 children, I was at every one of their birth. Like I was standing there watching them coming out, right? To me, it was an exciting moment because I had the opportunity to see life leave this world on 2 occasions, right? Somebody breathing their last, and you're expecting them to breathe again, and that was it. And to see life comes into the world and taking that first breath, to me, I know that's my thing. I just was like, wow, I saw it go and I'm seeing it coming in. To me, it was like the most remarkable thing ever, just to see life come in. And I was talking to a friend of mine, ex-co-worker, and he said to me, man, no, that's a woman's job. I don't need to be there. Send her mother and her sister, and I don't need to be around them. But that's your child. I said to him, you're the farmer. He says, yeah, if I want to farm, I go plant some oranges. I said, no. Think of it this way. You are the one that put the seed there. Don't you want to see it produced? Like you don't. No.
The part of that, though, remember, sometimes men can be queasy in the hospital room. I was in the hospital room, but
you were one of those queasy.
I didn't faint. But part of that whole thing, So I think sometimes. I was okay. I saw the baby coming out and all that kind of stuff. I didn't faint. But what I'm saying, some men can be really put back by that. So their macho image, if you will, is a cover for them not being able to handle that scenario.
I know some women are like that too. Who can't handle the sight of blood and all that kind of thing. But I think the whole excitement of a baby.
Yeah, but you're probably, I wouldn't look at you. You might be in that little exception where you're so excited about it that, by that I mean, I'm a bit like you. I don't think I'm as extreme as you.
Folks, he said it finally. He said it finally.
I don't mean it that way. You know what I'm saying. I mean, like,
I know what you're saying.
You're sounding like me. I can't get right in there, and everything's dirty and messy, and I don't care. I'm just going to be there.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. If I actually, it would have been. Is it the first or the second one? I don't remember. They said, "Do you want to cut the cord?" And I'm like, "Yes!" I was out of there, of course. Yes, I want to do that, right? But you know what? In hindsight, looking back at certain things, it's things that I didn't know of and I learned today. And we're not switching from fatherhood we're talking about. But just to understand if there are any young fathers out there, I don't think hospitals allow you to do this, but it's been a proven fact that when a baby is born, don't be too quick to cut the placenta off. Because it's still feeding and it's still giving. You could actually, it's not a problem leaving it there for a little while, probably a whole day, because it's not a problem. But we don't know because medical practitioners would tell us differently. So, no.
Well, for them, they don't want the inefficiencies of that. For them, to get rid of that as quickly as possible. And
which is one of the things too, and of course, and there's so many theories behind that. But I just thought of that. I'm thinking, now if I'd known that before, I'm crazy enough to tell him, can you hold on a little bit, don't cut this baby off too fast, let him or her get a little bit more from, because it talks about the fact that it makes them even more alert, brilliant, and the different things in terms of health-wise, as soon as they clip that stuff, they give the baby an injection. If they don't do that, they don't need to give the baby injection. I thought, really? Because technically speaking, I don't remember that happening back in the West Indies.
But remember, let's say, even in this country, years ago, in the, let's say, 80s or 70s, women would stay in the hospital if they had a baby for 3 to 5 days. Remember, 3 to 5 days? Well, now it's 1 day. You're barely in there. You're in and you're out.
Yeah.
So I'm saying.
But here's the thing, though. Going back to my home, and I've had the opportunity to see this too. Well, I didn't see it, but I witnessed a little bit of scenario take place. The Amerindians from our country.
Right.
Yeah. So I went camping, and there was one of the ladies there who was huge. I mean, she looked bigger because I think she was just shorter. That's why she looked. Gotcha. And then all of a sudden, you see her waddling down this path with two older women, right? So I'm like thinking, I'm looking at them, and the guy said, "Oh, they're just going to have the baby." I'm like, "What do you mean they're going to have the baby?" "Yeah, they're going to have the baby." I'm like, okay. So I kind of dismissed that. I thought he was just kidding around because already they were talking about this tapir they just killed and all this kind of stuff. And about an hour and a half later, she came back with this bundle of joy on her back, and she's back into business. And I thought to myself, interesting. They later took us down to this creek area, and it was like 2 posts into the creek water itself, and how they had to show you how they have it all set up, that the baby comes into the water.
Yeah, I've heard
and they talk about it's a lot easier for the woman and all that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, things that we took for granted back home, it's like if a woman wants to have her natural birth at home in the bathtub, as they normally have this big thing set up, it costs big money and all this kind of stuff. Home, it was free, right? But the thing is, the placenta was kept with the baby.
Oh, I see.
Because I knew there was an extra bag and I don't know what it was. But it's later when I get to understand what they call it, the blood bag. They call it the blood bag. Didn't understand until I was reading an article about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm like, oh, that's what they were calling the placenta. I was a teen then. Who knows not much about babies and all kind of stuff. But the thing is, when she came up, mother came up with the baby, all the men surrounded her. It was like, it's like a proud moment. I mean, the father was there, but it was like a proud moment for him. And I just thought about the fact when you're talking about fatherhood, how they were and how fathers are, especially in those what we call them settlement areas with the tribes and so forth. How the fathers are so involved in the children's lives. I mean, mothers know their role, but fathers know their role as well. And it's like a community thing. Nobody is separated from anybody. It's all right there.
Beautiful. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. So that does speak to the importance of the father.
Somebody said it's after birth, it's called?
After birth.
After birth, Placenta after birth.
Placenta after birth. Yeah. They're just kind of up to educate you. You have the right language. Placenta after birth. I know we didn't know. I know. But, anyway. So anyway, so every child, but thanks for sharing that, but every child deserves a loving father. And so a loving father is in the life of the child, as opposed to that person that you met years and years ago who doesn't want to be in the life of that child. Then a loving father wants to be in. They might not be as hyper as our friend Claremont here, but but they really want to be in the life of that child. They want to be around that child. They want to be do whatever they can to invest positively in the life of that child. Now, my next point is this: based on what we in qualifying every child deserves a loving father, and we've qualified what that love is, and your feedback in this discussion is more than welcome, and we'll read some of those if you post them. But the thing is this: next one I want to talk about is the rights of a father. So the rights of a father. Now there's a little twist I want to put on this. So let's talk about the rights of a father. Now, I wrote the point down: to exercise the right to be in the life of their child. So we say, every father has a right to be in the life of their child. But let me qualify that by saying this: in order to do that, a father must be right. And I thought about, when I first thought about, well, yes, a father has rights. But when I looked up the word right, you know what the first definition was? The first definition. And that's what I'm going to go with first. Right comes from the word morally correct, just, honorable, goodness, righteous. I said correct, I think. Virtuous, honest, truthful, fair, and equity.
Right.
Now think about that.
Okay.
So that means we're saying a man must be right. And that, I think, that speaks to his motive, his intention,
right,
his heart towards his child. A man must be right. Now, follow this carefully. So a man who possesses this kind of character, motive, and intention deserves to have the rights of relating to his child in an unfettered manner. Do you hear what I just said there?
Right.
Now hold it. You look. I know. Now think about this. Now, remember what I just said there. Because I wasn't going to go that direction. I said, "Oh, that's it." So a man must be right. Now, if a man isn't right, think about that. Just think about this. If a man isn't right, he can produce a lot of ill will, a lot of harm, a lot of danger to his offspring. But let me say this also. If a man isn't right, then what will happen is this: he'll relate to his child often from a position of hurt and pain. That's the result of his action.
Right.
And oftentimes, either directly or inadvertently, it's going to be taken out on his child, or be manifested in how he speaks to and parents this child. Oftentimes, that's where you get a lot of vindictiveness. Now, don't worry. This is sounding like we're man aiding. This might sound a bit that way, but it's not. We're going to talk about the ladies maybe next week. We're going to talk about probably how.
So I can't say anything then. Okay.
We're going.
I can't say anything.
Listen, man.
He just muzzled me. He just muzzled me.
See, that's why it helps for me to know who I'm working with, okay, and what he's thinking.
He just muzzled me. All right. Okay, we're going to talk about the ladies next week. That's fine.
Well, we're going to talk about, I think, how to relate to the mother of your child. I think we're going to talk a bit about that, because there's some things we need to do as men. and acknowledging that there are different relationships and things that we're dealing with. But the thing what we want to say is this. Oftentimes, we can't just say a man, just because he fathered a child, is going to be a loving father. So that's part of my premise. Okay. And so we're saying this. There's men walking around, like that man. Look at what he says. I want nothing to do with that child.
Right.
There's men. Think about that list now. Look, when we talk. Let's go back to this list we reviewed, the list you really like and wanted. Listen by this. A man, he doesn't care who he has sex with, where he plants his seed. He don't care.
Right.
Doesn't care. It's all over the place. You don't even know how many children he's got.
Right.
That number one. He's irresponsible. He has no commitment to his child.
Right.
Right? Let's go down this now. He'll go with any woman he wants to, and he doesn't care if she's got a child, if he never sees the child. Just think about this now. He doesn't want to be in the life of his child. Right? Is that specific enough? He doesn't invest in the life of his child. He takes no responsibility for the child's safety, provision, and upbringing. Right? Never calls on their birthday. Never gives them any money. The mother can be struggling. You don't care. What are you bothering me for? You call him. Can you give a little? And you're not telling him to pay the whole freight. He doesn't. So he takes no responsibility. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Okay, all right. I'm just wondering. I'm really speaking. I'm speaking to those guys. I hope you're hearing this. Listen to me now. He spends no regularly quantity time with his child. Doesn't want to instruct them, teach them, and help you as the mother to parent them. Listen, to input positively in their lives, right? He completely abandons the mother to have full care of the child.
Right.
Is that love? No. He's not invested in the child's education or personal development. He doesn't do whatever it takes to create a peaceful environment for his child. Now, we're saying by what our title is, every child does not deserve that kind of a father. But he deserves a loving father, which is the opposite of what we just kind of broke down here. So think about this. He wants to have no responsibility for the care of his children that he's brought into the world.
Okay.
So we're saying that man, I know it's hard to say this. I know some men might have a hard time hearing it. But that man has no right. Just by that definition.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's almost like he is by default. He's basically given up his right by a choice. I don't care about this child. His own ill will towards his children. And in fact, a man like that will be more destructive in the life and unproductive in the life of his child than the opposite. Do you hear what I'm saying? You got that? Okay, let me move on. I hope everybody's okay with that. I hope you can handle that. So I'm saying, based on what I just said there, this unloving man is not right.
Okay.
See, he's not right. So it doesn't have the kind of virtue, the honesty, the character, the integrity, the will, the responsibility. What I'm saying, his heart is not right to his own child. And unless that changes, it's going to probably cause a lot of problems.
Okay.
More than likely it will. Go ahead, man. Lay it on me.
All right, folks. I have to say this. And I'm saying this because I've heard it so many times in the sense that we would often bring up the qualifications of what a father ought to be like. But nobody ever stopped to think, what does the mother ought to be like? And I've seen so much misjustice with mothers.
Of course. Yeah.
Much more than a father would be, because I think what the problem is, it is easy for a father to step away and go. A mother is left with, as we call this little bundle of joy, so to speak, and she herself don't want to be a part of that. But because she knows how she's going to be looked at, she's left with this behind the scenes stuff that we don't see, like the ill treatment, the verbal abuse, the physical abuse, and there's a lot of that is happening today, right? In our community, in our society, and especially our community, that you see it, but nobody talks about it because it's the mother.
Well, she's the default. Remember, the child goes to her by default. So that's
and really and truly, she's not even good either.
You're saying in some circumstances you're talking?
In a lot of circumstances. I mean, I'm talking within our community ourselves. Our community, right? If you go in certain places, and like just recently I saw 2 days ago, 3 days ago, somebody sent me, I think my brother sent me this clip, and the woman was actually charged. She's giving a 6-month-old baby a cigarette to smoke. It's not a cigarette, it's marijuana, right? And I'm thinking, that is not just like, oh my gosh, well, I can't believe this. That's a regular basis, but we just don't see these kinds of things because who's talking about it? Because normally these same mothers now will bring their babies out and they're just all nice and cute and everything else because that's what they make the presentation, but behind the scenes we don't see what's going on. Now, so my thing is, our first thing that we do when a father's involved is that we try to see why should he be involved.
Gotcha. But you see, I want to.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I just want people to think about this for a moment. That fathers from the get-go, they're not fathers.
Mm-hmm.
When a mama decides to lie with a man, mm-hmm. right? And I challenge anybody in this one. You will know from the get-go whether he's a good father or not. Because listen, you can pretend as much as you want. Right? Like anything else, there's fake and there's real. Mm-hmm. And after a while, the fake will crack. But you'll know before the person becomes a father. You see things, but we like to think that, we can love them over this, or we can, and so we make them something, or we try to make them something that they're not in the first place. Gotcha. Right? And then they show the true colors show up.
Gotcha.
Right? So my thing is no child deserves, and I'm going to say it this way. Mothers, do not make men fathers or try to make them daddies if they don't want to be thinking it's an entrapment.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't do that, because first of all, the man don't want to be a daddy. Mm-hmm. You know it. But you think if you have a baby from you, you're going to keep him. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. He's going to walk away anyways.
But that's being, you're not honest then.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the woman, she has to be right.
She has to be right, yeah.
She has to be right.
Right. Because then you're putting the child in the same, every child deserves a loving father. Mm-hmm. So why are you going to give the child, I know you probably may love the child yourself, but why are you going to give the child an unloving father? Why are you going to do that?
Yeah. By your choice.
By your choice. Mm-hmm. And in most cases, it's by your choice. You know it.
You chose that. Yeah,
because
you chose it.
From the get-go, listen, ladies, hear me for a second. Any man that is coming on too sweet to you, and I mean, you know what I mean, this Western, those too sweet, way too sweet, too much sugar. Honey running down the lip, check him out there, man. Check him down, because you know where he's aiming at. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And once that happens, you have to ask yourself the question, especially if you're going to just have sex just like that with him because he's so sweet, I know he loves me and blah, 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 blah. Take care of yourself, because a baby's going to come. Yeah. And then what you're going to have is a child that does not have a loving father.
That's it. That's very good. That's excellent. So, when you said that, just to continue on that vein for a few moments then, is that women, you have to be right.
Yeah.
You have to be honest. And, you're kind of jumping ahead of here. That's fine.
I'm sorry,
that's
man.
Good.
I couldn't hold it.
I know, I could tell. That's why I let you go. I could tell. You're bursting at the seams. But that's really well said. And that we want, like we said, this theme, every child deserves a loving father.
Yeah.
And so I like what you've inserted here is that women have a great part to play in whether their child will have a loving father. For example, think about this as a thought. So if you're about to get into a relationship with a man who has children all over the place, mm-hmm. don't you think that's an easy one?
Oh,
then you're just going to be another one. You add to the list, right?
Don't let him tell you no foolishness, but you're the one. No.
Well, because his track record is proven. And so oftentimes women are allowing their emotions to get the best of them. Like you said, women love to hear. Like you said, so they move more by what they hear, right? Baby, I love you. You're sweet. There's no one like you.
You're the best. You're number one.
And when I tell you those words, I love you, but to them, to that man, those words mean nothing to him. Mm-hmm. It's just an access point to get you to give him what he wants. And so I like what you said there. So you have a responsibility in choosing the right man who will be a loving father to your children.
Peggy used to say this: what's sweet in the mouth, bitter in the belly.
Oh my goodness.
Basically, she's saying what is sweeter in the mouth shall be bitter in the belly, right? In the end, there you go. That's right. You do that because really and truly, at the beginning, I know of a situation where I said to the young lady, "Don't trust that. Mm-hmm. Something is off. He's too sweet." She said, "No, he's too sweet."
Did she listen to you?
No, she didn't listen. Oh. She didn't listen. But eventually, so what happened?
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. But you see, that's where it goes back to, and it coincides with women, your responsibility. That's a great point, I'm glad you said what you said. I'm glad that you were bursting.
Couldn't help it.
But the thing is this, women, you have a great responsibility in the choice of a man then.
That's right.
Especially in the Western world, in the choice. But the thing is this, what's your standard?
Yeah.
So you've got a standard. You've got to maintain such a high standard that you're worthy of a good man. You're worthy of a man who will be a loving father to your children. But if your standards are too low, or you're gonna give it up, at the slightest of pressure.
I remember hearing this once. Some friends asked a woman, "Are you leaving the child with this man?" Because she wanted to go out and do whatever party, so to speak. She said, "Oh yeah, he's a good father. He'll take care of the child." She said, "I know him. He'll take care of the child." So because she knows he's a good father, she does what she wants. And again, that's the flip side.
I see.
Right? Because she knows she has a good father for her child. She knows the man is into his child and into his children, period. It means that she can do what she wants. She's not concerned.
Got you. Now, I want to just comment to the end. I'm going to share a few more points here. So I know we're going really strong on the male part today, and that's what I wanted to focus on, the male's responsibility in being right. Because we did say, months and months ago, that the family, we could say, well, the family is built on the man. That's the biggest responsibility. If a community is going to be right, that men have to take their responsibility. So men, just some points on being right. So our hearts have to be right. And like I said, and no apologies for it, for men to take that position of father and the rights of a father means he has to be right. So his intention, his desire, his motivation has to be right. He has to have a certain character that says, yes, these are my children. I have the responsibility to be in their life and do everything to bring them up the very best that I can. And so some points on being right is that a person who's right, they seek to be responsible and take responsibility for their actions. So you said about that. So you brought a child into the world. A responsible man says, you know what? I'm going to man up. This is my child.
That's right.
I have a responsibility to this child. This child's not going to grow up in this world not knowing me. See, that's taking responsibility. Exactly. No matter how that child came into the world, you're taking responsibility for your choices and your actions. That's a man, not a male, a man.
That's right.
And then another one, you acknowledge where you've been wrong in your relationship with your child's ex. So the fact is this, in the best of relationships or in the worst of relationship, even if your ex was the one who ran off or did whatever, the fact is, it took the two of you. So I'm saying a right man takes responsibility. A right man says, you know what? I messed up. They acknowledge where they went wrong. They don't lay it all on, that person. Because oftentimes you can tell people have never, 10, 20 years have gone by, and they've never come to grips with their own failings. Why? Always looking at the other person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, I would be a fool to say, well, I'm the perfect man. My wife, look at everything's my wife. No, I've messed up. I've made mistakes.
Yeah.
So we're saying a right man, is right in his attitude, right in his inclination, right in his intentions and desires, his motive. The thing is this, he says, you know what, I'm taking responsibility. Where I was wrong with my ex, I made mistakes, I did this, man, I'm sorry. They're going to man up, they're going to confess that, they're going to acknowledge that. And if they don't, I'm telling you, you're not right. Then another one, they acknowledge your own personal hurts and wounds. Why? Because when you have a broken relationship, it does often leads to a broken heart. And those wounds run very deep.
Very.
See, so I'm just saying, so all of that is that to be right, we've got to deal with these things. So again, acknowledge your own personal hurts and wounds. Why? Because broken relationships can often cause broken hearts that really go deep into one's soul. And then 4, we need to seek help to become a whole person. So all of those things have to be happening if we're going to be right. You want to be a whole person. Why? If you're going to be, and again, if you don't deal with some of these issues of what caused a broken relationship, that caused a child that came into the world that you're not being able to interact and help, and if you don't deal with yourself, you're a broken person and you keep that for 10, 20, 30 years. Well, what are you going to impact? How are you going to impact that child? Oftentimes very negatively, and that's why children, oftentimes, they're more of a product or a result of our lives than we like to admit.
True.
So that's what we're saying. You've got to deal with that. And let me close by saying this. So there's got to be there's a process for being right. I thought of a bit yesterday. And so in addition to, acknowledging certain things, that's where repentance comes in. That's why, as Christians, we say, acknowledge, confess your faults, confess your sins before God. Ask him to forgive you. That's why Jesus came. One of his major roles is to help us to receive forgiveness and cleansing of our sins, and then ask God for help to heal you of brokenheartedness, to heal you of the hurts and the pain. And as men, you need to deal with that, because oftentimes with that strong exterior image, you're going around all strong, but you've never received forgiveness. You've never acknowledged the hurt and the pain that you're carrying around for years, and as a result of this, you've never got into a healthy relationship, not been able to give the very best to the children you fathered. Why? Because you've been too prideful and arrogant to get rid of to ask for forgiveness, to acknowledge where you've missed it. See that? All of that's so important. Then another one, be truthful to yourself and others about your part in a failed or failing relationship. You got to be honest. You got to be truthful. You got to be honest, to yourself, honest to God, honest to a good friend, even honest to your ex. You say, and that's one thing growing up. I realized Christians, oftentimes people are Christians, but just complete dishonesty.
Very much so.
If you come to the place where you go to your ex and say, you know what, I messed up. We're not together anymore. And you know what? If it was mainly your fault, be man enough to say, be right enough to say, it was my fault.
Yep.
I cheated on you. I did this. I didn't take care. I didn't treat you right. I'm telling you, that's why a lot of men can't go forward in a healthy relationship. They've never been honest. Even if they're just dishonest. You're not honest with God, not honest with yourself, not even honest with your ex. To humble yourself and say, you know what, she might be with another man. And then let's say some men, all they care about, they're so jealous, woman might have gone on with another man, and all you care about, who's she with? Yeah. Well, that's none of your business.
Because it's rubbing your macho-ness.
There it is. But you see, that means, think about this now. So 10, 20 years, inside, you're still a little boy.
Oh, yeah.
See? You're still wounded, still broken, never got rid of that. So we're trying to help you to get over that. We had a couple minutes left. But then, choose the right mentors in your life. Who demonstrate true qualities of a man and a father. And part of that will include the right pastor. The right pastor is a godly man, sets a high standard, lives it himself, and other mature men around you, because we need to have that company of men who are moving in the right direction. Another, be teachable, willing to learn and grow as a father and a man. Be accountable, be teachable. All these things are so critical to our lives as men. Why? Because we want every child does deserve a loving father, and like you have, we've committed to be that man, to be that father to our children. And then what we can also, as we develop in that, we can also be broad enough as men, as fathers, to take on other children who we didn't father biologically, but need our influence and fathering as men. And so, time is up. Oh, my time is up.
Yeah, I'm watching it for you.
You're watching the time. Thank you so much.
Well, folks, we want to thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor, for sharing with us today about being the true fathers we ought to be to our children. And sometimes we really don't understand what it is to be. And for men, based on their... Guys, it is easy to cry, and you should cry sometimes. Because when you do that, it's not that you're becoming soft or weak. Is that you have learned how to say, you know what, I can be a loving father. You begin to empathize with your children and the things that they go through. But we're running out of time, so we want to say thank you so much for listening. Join the same time next time, same time. Same station. Same station. There you go.
Same time, same place. Thanks for tuning in again. Appreciate it.
God bless you.
Please check us out, Facebook, SBR Live, and please check out Claremont tomorrow, 6 to 10.
6 to 10.
Joining us today on Rebuilding the Black Family, Pastor Carl Lewis and myself, Claremont Humphrey. We trust you found this program helpful. Please give us your feedback on our Facebook page, Foundation for Life Church. Also, visit us at foundationforlife.ca, where you will find some free life-building resources. Join us next time for another edition of Rebuilding the Black Family. Until then, build your life and family on the sure foundation of Jesus Christ.